Good afternoon. I had a viewer ask me a question about my miter saw wings, and I wanted to explain where this idea came from and how I went about putting it together. I'm not going to build one, but I'll explain a lot of it and my mistakes I've made and things like that. All in all, though, it's been a wonderful tool. Wonderful. The Anyway, we'll get into that. So stick around. Here is the boxed up, enclosed travel mode. You see already there's a mistake I made here, but we'll talk about it. I've got handles, I've got window latches holding it together. And let's open it up and show you what we got and talk about it. First of all, before I take any kind of credit, the entire idea of these wings came from Spencer Lewis of Insider Carpentry on YouTube. He had a video, he had a few videos, and like he made one, and I think he made an updated version. Um, and as you do, you make something and then you find out maybe I didn't need those things, and maybe I wish I had some of these things. So he made another one, and he may have made several by now. This is the only one I've ever made, and I do have some. I do have a wish list a little bit, but all in all, it's been fine. Not enough for me to go making any changes. But the entire process was his process that I took from his video, and I made my own unit to suit my needs based on all of his information. He included some information for this track and some other things to go with it, and I use that, this measuring tape, which is magnetic, and I use that as well. And and I'll include some of these links below also for you if you're interested. But the entire package, I bet it weighs around 75 to 80 pounds. I've never weighed it, but it's heavy. But I keep it in my trailer, and that's where it stays all the time. And if I need it at home, I take it out of the trailer, and I take the trailer to the jobs a lot, and it's always convenient to have it. And I can't operate my saw without it. Let's go to the saw for a second before I even get into these. The saw itself, originally I had another saw because I was just a guy doing occasional things. I had a job for an environmental company. I traveled around, and when I came home, I'd be home sometimes just for, if I was working, I'd only come home for a few days and then I'd go back to work. But sometimes there's periods of time between jobs, like over the winter. There might be projects that shut down over the winter. Sometimes I'd be home for a month or two or three during the winter, and that was, a lot of stir craziness going on there. So I would find ways to be constructive, because at this point, when I bought the chop saw prior to this, I already had a job. I had experience as a framer and occasional, fences and decks and things like that, but mostly framing experience. Um, but I wanted to do some things at my house, so I bought a chop saw and I bought a few other things. I used to have more tools, and then I got rid of them all, thinking I don't need that. I work for the environmental world, anyways. And there's always reasons to get rid of clutter or things, whatever. So I ended up buying a new chop saw because the old one I had was like really old. When I got it at Menards. I also got this stand. I love the stand. It's a wonderful stand. The stand is probably 15 years old. It's a Master Force, and I've seen other brands that have the exact same build. It folds up. It's got wheels. Um, it's got a electrical cord on it, and with a GFCI in the middle, and it's got 3 receptacles on the end. So that's convenient. I could plug my cord if I wanted to directly into that cord, and then I have places to plug in sanders or jigsaws or what have you, any other tool, and also the chop saw. But right now, I just have the chop saw plugged into the cord. Um, but as everybody knows, the contraption slides out, and you got to adjust the thing, and it's a rather short uh, width on it. And well, even if it comes out this far to hold your long pieces, what if you had a piece that's what if the thing comes out 5 feet, but you had a 4.5 foot board? Then it's just dangling off of. You got to put pressure and hold it here, and you can't let go of it, or else it'll fall over. It was kind of ridiculous. Kind of, I understand they don't need to sell the full package. They need to sell something, or somebody needs to sell something. So, anyways, I ended up getting rid of those wings, which were foolish. What came with it was this tool mount. There's 2 of these, and they grab on. They stay mounted permanently to the tool, and I don't want to get too crazy. I typically go down, and I typically turn it like this, and then I pick it up like this, typically. So then once you pick it up, you put it in place, you kind of lock it in place, and I'm very happy with that. This is wonderful. So that was the first thing with these wings. How are the wings going to connect to the saw? I went back to, and this is years later, when I decided to make the wings. That's another thing. I was at the environmental company. It was driving me crazy over time. The more I was at the company, they were giving me some opportunities, and I was doing some things I didn't do before. And the more I was doing, the more it was bothering me. I was realized I was seeing the true colors of some people. I was also in over my head at times. Sometimes I wasn't, but other times I was, and it's kind of disturbing when you're out of your element, and things are out of your control. But nonetheless, uh, what opportunities were there weren't necessarily for me. So I decided I needed to work for myself. I decided there's a lot of work around where I live, uh, which is on the coast, and it's a thriving area for residential work. Um, and while I'm at the hotels 2 days a week, kind of going stir crazy there too, I would start to prepare myself for I need to step away from this environmental world and get back to a construction world. I in my mid 50s at that. Uh, I stepped away from a lot. They paid me well. They gave me a handsome 401k package and benefits. It was all very good, and I chose to walk away from it for my sanity mainly. And another thing was I could come home every night to be with my amazing wife, which it was getting old being away from her. So let's open this up and see what we got. So while I was at the hotels, I would watch a lot of YouTube and construction videos and carpentry videos, and I liked some guys, and um, I followed their pages, and I paid attention to what they were doing, even though I wasn't necessarily doing that type of stuff. So you open it up, and I bought these uh, uh, tool supports, whatever they're called, also from Menards. These also mount on the same entire tool support, whatever you call that, stand, miter saw stand. So these mount right on here like that. It comes with a handle. You lock it into place. You put it into place from the back. You drop the front down and lock it. These lock in the front with the tool kind of toward the back, but these I need the stand to be a little toward the front, so I flip them around and it supports it like that, and it works really well. Let me back up a step, back to this. So inside here, I also keep these in here. These clamps are part of my fastening the wings to the saw. So I've got, and I keep a clamp with my pad of paper handy. You always got to have those. On this side, you can lock this down. I didn't lock it previously. I just kind of threw them in there. But and I think Spencer had some things like this. I forget the details of what he had, but this is probably something he had, something similar. I ended up putting these little supports in here to keep this from spinning side to side because it would get a lot of friction, but now that it just goes straight up and straight down. It works very well. And I'll explain these in a little bit once I get it all set up, and I'll explain these in a little bit. The leg has I put some magnets in here, and I think he had something like that, and I forget exactly. But so they grab onto the magnets. They're hinged with just a zinc plated hinge, and it's just one sheet of plywood that I cut out most of the center of it. I gave it an opportunity to sit on 2 feet instead of one long piece. I think it's a little bit more secure that way. And then when it collapses, it holds itself down. So then let's install her. This is the left side. I drop it on top. I've got this board, this 2x4. It fits between here, so it controls at this end of the wings. It controls the left and right, or the forward and backward. See, it just falls right on there. And as you see, as I go up and down, this pivots up and down right here. But I support it, and then I pull the leg out, and it's sitting up. And one thing first thing I do is I eyeball down this edge, because this edge is in line with this fence. I want to keep it in line with that fence. I'm pretty close right there. I could tap the leg if I'm close. And another thing, I look at the plane of this versus the plane of the saw, and I try to bring those into the same plane. I don't get a level out. I don't get a laser out, nothing crazy like that. I just kind of eyeball it. And as I do eyeball it, I can move the leg, move it out a little more to go down, or sometimes it needs to go up higher. Sometimes I'm on a uneven surface. I might be on a driveway. I could put some boards underneath there if I need to go up higher. If I need to go lower, I could always fold it out like that a little more. But that's how I control that. I look at the side, that looks good. I look at the up and down, and actually, that don't look bad where it is. So then the next thing, I grab one of these Kreg clamps, long, deep jaw clamps. They're self-adjusting. Whether you grab nothing or whether you grab this here, they lock just the same. These are wonderful clamps, and this is the only thing I've ever used them for. But I get the clamp up inside here, and I grab the side of this wall and the side of this board here, and I draw these two together so they don't open up. You can see there's a little offset here. So my wings has a little bevel here, and it hits that offset just to keep it in the vicinity. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, but it can be pushed around and made nice. So I've got bad knees, but anyways, I get down, put this underneath here, I put that on this side, and it's secure. If I move this around, it moves the saw with it. It might have a little wiggle. It might be a little, it could be the feet of the saw are like this, where this foot is like this, but all in all, it's fine. It has a little wobble. Here's another thing. If I feel, sometimes I'm working with really heavy wood. It could be 2x12s. It could be pressure treated deck boards, which can get pretty heavy, even though, or they could be 2x6s or 8s, whatever. Sometimes these legs will start to walk. They'll start to just like that and start moving around and opening up. And as they move, the table falls down. I could put a board across here and put a box of nails or something heavy. I could bring a crate of something heavy just to put some pressure on it to hold it down so it won't move. And when you put a little pressure, it holds it pretty, you know, it's good enough for what it is. It's not a cabinet, but for what it is, it holds it really well. On this side, let me show you this. Let me do it like this before I go too far. Let me show you the back side. And we've got two accessories, and these are all 100% from Spencer. The first one is the fence from FastCap. It's a, I will find out the information and I'll post a link, but it's a FastCap product, and it's got a little red, little fine line there that you could see, and when you look down at the measuring tape, that's what you see is the line. It's got a hex head nut on the back, and we're sliding it into this groove up here. This lower groove is only to mount it to the wings, and then the upper groove is for the accessories to slide on. So now that's sliding, you slide it wherever you want it, and sometimes you could put some dry lubrication on it, and it slides around very well. You get that red indicator line right on your measurement, and it's once it's all dialed in, it's perfect every time, every time. This is merely a, like in band, the pedestal thing to hold your music. This is just a device to hold your notes. And what I keep handy, I showed you earlier, I've got my paper and my little spring clamp. I keep my notes on there like that. Sure are a lot of planes out this afternoon. So bring this around, put that on top of that 2x4, bring the leg down, catch it with my foot. Then I do the same thing. I lift this up so I could look down this fence and keep it in line with the same, you know, the fence comes through around the edge of this board here. So I keep it around that same plane, about like that. Then I look up and down. I could see I need to go down a little, so I bring that out. And that is not bad. It's close. It's not perfect. It's close. And you might see this leg is a little splayed out more than that one is. Maybe these legs are off a little, but it's all dialed in. Then I take this other clamp I have, put it on this side. That's it. That's 100% it. My stop block is on the money. If I have it set at 20 inches, 20 inches. Here's just a board I had laying around on the ground. Up to the stop block, See, the stop, it's reading here, but it's actually stopping over here. But that's something you set up and you put your tape in accordingly. So I'll slide it over there. That is exactly 20 inches. And it's very accurate every time. And if it gets off a little, you can adjust the block to the black bracket. You could also adjust the tape if you need to. You could move the tape around. It's got a magnetic strip that goes down first, and then the tape itself is made of metal and it sticks to the magnet. It's a wonderful design, and I think Spencer Lewis every time I use it. One of the things a few of the things I did wrong. Well, before I get into that, he has a few additional little channels with T-tracks on here, and he puts in a crown stop device, which I there are times I wish I had that. I just never got around to doing that. And he might have a few others. He has another one over here where he does some coping. Um, I I've never had the need for that. I do my coping in this area. It's very secure around here, and I could cope. But I don't cope too terribly often. Maybe 4 times a year at the most. It ain't too often. But I set this. I first set up this side to safely accommodate the 45 cut. Even though the saw goes to 60, I'm not going that far often enough to need that. I'm good with the 45 and a little bit beyond. So I made both sides match, but this side's a little bit different. Um, before I padded it out there, this came in a little too close. I think it was too close, and it was bumping. Or if I had to go a little bit more, it didn't take much before it hit it. Something like that. I forget the exact details, but I had to pack this out to bring this angle a little bit further away from this arm. But that, that wasn't so bad, and there's no harm with that. These little feet, they help align the top and the bottom section. They also, the handles are on this side, I turn that up, they make handy feet so that the window latches don't get hit, because this is 3/4 and this is less than 3/4. Not by much, but it's less. And you can see there's some damage on here, but there's no damage on here whatsoever. Same on this side. So that's been a good little thing for me. That's just about it, I believe. I keep them with me at all times. Even if I have to cut a few little boards, there might be a downside. It's a lot to get out. It's a lot to lug around. If a lot of my work is upstairs at beach houses, and they're 16 feet up the stairs, typically, sometimes more, sometimes less. But it could be a chore dragging all that stuff upstairs, but it's also a chore to drag this upstairs and to drag a table saw upstairs if I need to. Um, but these wings are awesome. They're a lifesaver. Um, I also wish I had a shop, and every time I need to do some work at my house, I have to set it all up, and at the end of the day, I have to pick it up again and put it back in the trailer because I can't leave it out, or if there's weather coming or something like that. But that's my situation. All in all, it doesn't take too long to set it up. It's just a little more time to set things up and to break them down. It'd be nicer if I had a shop and everything's always ready to go all the time, but I don't have that. Anyway, let me break it down. The breakdown is relatively quick. I remove the clamps, and then this side comes up, and I swing it over to drop the leg. I usually just put this on the ground sometimes I carry a lot of these trash cans with me. You see on the back of my chop saw, I've got that 90-degree piece of PVC. And also that's just on a Fernco, rubber Fernco coupling. I keep a tool here to adjust the coupling, but I set it to where it just snugly grabs on, and so it goes on easily, comes off easily. And I typically try to direct the sawdust into a can. It saves on the cleanup. And here at my house, it's a different story. If I was at your house, I'd be much cleaner. Um, so so that's another. As I pick it up, I this tool is where I store this, which is kind of convenient. And I slide this around to 45. I go down and I slide it forward and then lock it. But anyway, I move this to the side a little so I can take these out. And then I unscrew these from the back. Come in, here. And I drop these into position. And then tighten it down. Look, it tightens very nicely. I keep this kind of over here. Put my clamps here and here, all pretty basic. And you know, some of these and some of these and these and these, it adds up to some weight, but it's a lot better than those factory things that slide out and they only have a little silly bar, and then with the flat thing on the side, those are not what you want. Hey, if you've seen any of my work, I do a lot of louver work, and that means a lot of repetitive cuts. I think the last garage I built, it was something like 970 boards cut to length, and I'll cut 75 at a time, the same measurement. So I'd set up my block and I crank it down tight, because if you don't crank it down tight and you keep sliding your wood to it, you could bump it and move it. So I crank it down tight and I try not to bump it and move it, but the stop block is amazing. It saves me so much work. And if you ever seen Spencer Lewis, that's his. It's one of his big rules is to be efficient, and he appears to be extremely efficient. And that's also one of my goals, at least not a rule but a goal. Anyway, bring it out. It stands right up. I keep, as I store it in my trailer, I keep the metal toward the side that I'm not going to be walking on. I walk on this side, and so the measuring tape stays safe, and this has never had any trouble. It's got screws like every 10 inches, 12 inches. It's 9 inches. This is actually two pieces instead of the whole thing is 7 foot 3.5. And so from the blade, you end up a little more than 8 feet to the blade. You're kind of like 8 foot 2 or 3 to the blade, which is great when you need a 16-foot piece and you have to trim the end to clean it up. You could still let go of it and the 16-foot piece remains on the wings. You could make this longer if you wanted to. And I made it fit in my trailer comfortably. I also put my table saw in behind it, so there's room for that too. My trailer's so small, I have to be precise and have little meaning with everything. But this is wonderful, and I will include. These are just some box store handles or hardware store or whatever, and same with the window hasps. But I'll include some links to some of the other things. And if you don't have something like this, you should, because it's amazing. It's a little effort. And one person asked me a while ago, is it cumbersome? It is a little cumbersome, but honestly, once it's set up, you could be all day. Sometimes you could be on a job where you're set up inside a house for a week or so, and you just leave it set up inside the house for a week or so. I'm usually outside, so I usually have to break it down every time, every day, set it up every morning. And still, that's okay because it doesn't take too long to set up. You saw me break it down, it takes just as long to set it up. You saw me set it up too, it didn't take long, and I was describing things. Oh, another thing I did wrong. It was the very first thing I did. I was so proud and happy. I put well, the first thing I did, I put some furniture wax on it, the paste, Johnson's paste wax, and the helped the wood. It just slid around, slid wonderfully. Um, and then it was sometime later, a month or so, I was putting a clear finish on some other things, and I thought, well, I should put a clear finish on this too. It'll help protect everything. But with that wax under there, the clear finish all came up, most of it. Um, so that was kind of foolish. It was a little bit backwards. But oh well. I was more in the moment than thinking accurately. But anyway, there's here where there was no wax, it still has a clear finish from 2 years ago. Yeah, oh, more than 2 years ago when I did that. These things are about 2 years and 2 months old, something like that. Uh, and it's been wonderful. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll include some links, and hopefully something like this can help you out. And also, look for Spencer Lewis's video. I might include a link to that too. He goes through his explanation of it all, and this is my explanation of how it applies to me and my tools and my situation. We all have different situations and workloads and stuff like that. Anyway, thank you.